Imprisoned between the two chocolate cookies of Sunshine Hydrox is the purest, snow-white, velvety cream in all the cookie world.
This is the Runners Up Club, a podcast about unsung heroes, lovable losers, and forgotten failures. For those with a few minutes to spend on those who spent theirs in a losing cause.
Damn, this one stings. Of all the members in the Runners Up Club, the tale of the Hydrox cookie is perhaps the most paradigmatic. In the portrait gallery of members, which sits just outside the Great Hall where we have our annual banquet, the picture of the Hydrox hangs in a position of prominence. It's a second-bester that's taken on all the sadder connotations of the also-ran, the pathetic loser, while being, in fact, the original, worthy of so much more. Hi folks, I'm Ray Agustinelli. Welcome to the podcast. If you know the name Hydrox at all, you may think of it as a desperate bid by a rival company to cash in on the broad appeal of America's favorite cookie, the Oreo. Well, think again. The Hydrox predated the Oreo by several years. Its surging popularity inspired a copycat response from Nabisco, which was the largest bakery of the era. Oreo, my friends, is the knockoff. Now, I'm going to say right now, this particular story is pretty well told in the byways of hidden history type magazine articles and podcasts and the like, so I'm going to spend a little more time on what I think is an undertold part of the story, which has nothing to do with chocolate wafers or cream filling, but with the weird personal relationship between the key people behind the companies behind the cookies. Here's the setup. The Hydrox was first created in 1908 by a company called the Loose Wiles Biscuit Company. It later changed its name to Sunshine Biscuits, and under that name, even today, you'll see it featured on the packaging of what was its greater claim to snack food fame, the Cheez-It. The Loose Wiles and later Sunshine Biscuit Company is the legacy of a man named Jacob L. Loose. The Oreo was first created in 1912, 4 years later, by a company then called the National Biscuit Company, known today by the abbreviated term Nabisco. Nabisco was led by a guy named Adolphus Green. So that's the rivalry. Hydrox versus Oreo, Sunshine Biscuit versus Nabisco, Jacob Loose versus Adolphus Green. These guys were not strangers to one another. In fact, before becoming rivals, they were very close partners. Yeah, it went down like this. It's the 1880s. Jacob has a small bakery in Kansas City with his brother, and later something of a turncoat, Joseph Loose. Things are going real well, but the brothers want to grow, and competing head-to-head with other Midwestern bakeries, of which there were several, seems less desirable than joining forces with them. The model here was Rockefeller's Standard Oil and Carnegie's Big Steel. They're looking to make a bakery trust. Well, in order to pull all those Midwestern bakeries into a single corporation, the Loose boys bring in a hotshot lawyer from Chicago named, you got it, Adolphus Green. Adolphus works some contractual magic, and the trust is formed. So it's 1890 now, our man Jacob sits atop the newly formed American Biscuit Company, his bro Joseph is on the board, and his hired gun Adolphus is the general counsel. Now they're a player on the national stage, going up against the other big guys in the biscuit game, the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Baking Company. Here's a sidebar snack. The old-timey word biscuit, front and center in those days, not so much now, comes from the Latin term biscatus, which means twice baked. Cookies in those days fell more on the cracker side of the spectrum than the cake side. Anyway, continuing. Over the next 7 years or so, the so-called biscuit wars are fought between Jacob's American Biscuit Company and the other guys, the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Baking Company. The East Coast companies opened factories in the Midwest. Jacob's ABC tried to gain toeholds in the East. Inevitably, the leaders of these companies all came to their senses from a greedy, money-grubbing standpoint, decided to stop competing, and to, build an even bigger trust. Trust, monopoly, potato. It was okay then, it sorta still is now, if no one stops you, like Lena Khan, let's say, it's the thing to do. Here's where things start to get dicey between Jacob and his brother Joseph and Adolphus. Jacob was not in favor of combining with the East Coast guys. He wanted to keep competing. This is one reason we like to root for Jacob today. He wasn't taking the easy road to fortune, he already had that. But those biscuit wars had worn him down physically. It's 1887, he's in poor health. He steps away from the day-to-day operations, moves to Europe with his new wife Ella, and tries to recover his strength. At which point, in his absence, his brother Joseph, who was also burnt out on the biscuit wars, steps in. He says, "I'm in charge now and we're selling out. Adolphus, go meet with NYBC and USBC and any other acronyms you can find who make cookies, and let's build ourselves a Death Star. I mean a conglomerate." Joseph's letters from his European sickbed go ignored. The National Biscuit Company is formed in 1898. Joseph and Adolphus take seats on the Nabisco board. Jacob gets one too, but does he want it? Not particularly. He's not done. He resigns from the Nabisco board in 1902 and starts the Loose Wiles Bakery, later renamed Sunshine. Note that name, Sunshine. Joseph Luce's dream bakery is one filled with light, guided by the twin virtues of quality and service, and imbued with a sense of cleanliness and purity. His ideal, it was written of him, quote, was always directed toward perfect sanitation, efficient baking methods, and the highest quality of biscuits through the use of proper ingredients. He was a stickler for the utmost in quality, carefulness in packaging, and in service to the trade. Read the accounts of Jacob Luce today, including the obituary where that last quote was published in a trade magazine called The Cracker Baker, and there's that recurring theme of cleanliness and purity. They're normally very laudatory qualities in a man, and certainly in a baker, particularly one in the early 20th century. This is pre-Sinclair Lewis territory here. But in this case, those qualities may be just the things that doomed his special cookie to near oblivion. That takes us to the cookie. Hydrox launched in 1908. We don't know exactly who invented it per se, someone from Jacob's R&D department, and big props to that person, world historical level cookie innovation going on there. Someone else at Sunshine, in the brand marketing department presumably, decided on the name Hydrox. Not so many props to that person. It's a mashup of hydrogen and oxygen, the two elements in water, and it was meant to evoke that sense of cleanliness and purity so important to Jacob. The Hydrox was marketed as an aristocratic cookie, great for special occasions, sold in soda shops and pharmacies. In all, it was a new breed above the oatmeal cookie, which was the most popular at the time. The chocolate chip cookie, by the way, was still 3 decades in the future. So, for 4 years, roughly contemporaneous with the Taft administration, the Hydrox rises throughout cookiedom. Now, Nabisco still rules that kingdom. It's a big consolidated company with massive advantages in advertising and distribution. Sunshine is a provincial upstart by comparison. But Jacob Luce is coming after that throne. With Hydrox in the vanguard, he brings the battle to his foe. In 1912, he opens his dream bakery in Queens. It was nicknamed the Thousand Windows Bakery. We can imagine the man himself, the cleanliness-obsessed mogul, staring out one of those windows west across the East River to Chelsea in Manhattan, home of Nabisco. He shakes his fist. The Star Wars Rebel theme music is playing in the background. Flash cut now to Nabisco HQ, where the company execs are, unfortunately, not shaking in their boots. I guess we have to cue the Darth Vader theme now, as Adolphus Green strides into his boardroom, holds aloft a chocolate sandwich cookie with cream filling, indistinguishable from the Hydrox to any eye not attuned to the nuances of black crumbly filigree, and he declares,
"Behold the copycat! We shall crush our friend Jacob."
So game on. And for decades, it was a very competitive game. Hydrox and Oreo both had their adherents. Hydroxians were drawn perhaps to a crispier cookie part, the Oreos partial to a sweeter and creamier filling. Hydrox was also always kosher, so had a fan base in the Jewish community. Here's some ad copy from a full-page spread in the Woman's Home Companion in 1928. This was 5 years after Jacob Luce's death, in a decade when Hydrox still had something of a first-mover advantage.
Imprisoned between the two chocolate cookies of Sunshine Hydrox is the purest, snow-white, velvety cream in all the cookie world. Its fine, creamy quality is one of the things that distinguishes Sunshine Hydrox from all its imitators that try so hard, but oh so vainly, to be like Hydrox. Just take a wee pinch of this delicate Hydrox fondant and rub it between your thumb and forefinger. It liquefies almost instantly. This is indeed evidence of fine quality ingredients and digestibility. The power of Sunshine Hydrox cookie sandwiches over the average man's appetite is almost sinful. It makes husbands pilfer pantries. It makes them reach a table or take two at a time. Well, we're not going to destroy the most glorious biscuit recipe in all the world just because it's nullifying the book of etiquette. No, ma'am. You'll always find Sunshine Hydrox at your grocer's. He carries Hydrox in charming bonbon packages, or by the pound.
Gotta love the hyperbolic claims there. Kudos to the second-generation Sunshine marketing folks for that one. But we do start to see the beginnings of an unfortunate trend. They're already playing defense against all their imitators, by which they really meant Oreo. Over the next few decades, their entreaties became ever more insistent, trying to remind consumers or to make them care that the Hydrox were the first, the original, the classic. It just didn't matter. Early sales figures for the two cookies aren't easy to come by, so it's hard to know how they stacked up head-to-head in that mid-century timeframe, but the numbers for the companies are a good proxy. Through the 1960s, Nabisco's sales were consistently 2 to 3 times that of Sunshine's. We do start to get brand-specific figures in the 80s, where Oreo has a 4x advantage. By the 1990s, Oreo is outselling Hydrox by 20 to 1. So it's kinda sorta game over at this point, cookie-wise. Company-wise, Sunshine Bakery is still massively successful, $600 million in annual sales. People do love their Cheez-Its. And from here we get a bit more ultra-fascinating, to MBA candidates only, corporate acquisition. Sunshine was acquired by Keebler in 1996, a tasty corporate treat soon gobbled up by Kellogg's in 2001. Kellogg's stopped selling Hydrox in 2003, by which time the recipe had been reformulated to be sweeter and the name changed to Droxies to appeal to children. So much for the cookie that threatened to make husbands pilfer pantries. A limited run of Hydrox in 2008, celebrating the cookie's centennial, was discontinued months later. Well, we come now to the why. Why was the Hydrox overtaken by the Oreo? It happened gradually, over decades, so it's not like there was a single mistake by Sunshine or a genius move by Nabisco. The taste difference is real, but not really enough to justify the sales differential, in my opinion. On taste alone, we might expect more of a Coke-Pepsi situation here than what we have, which is a complete blowout. Well, there is an elephant in the room here, so we may as well give it a peanut. That name, Hydrox, that mashup of hydrogen and oxygen, the elements of water. To Jacob Luce, a man, remember his obituary, whose ideal was always directed toward perfect sanitation, it was the perfect name. It was actually quite trendy for a while. There were other products that shared it, table water, ice cream, ginger ale. But that just compounded the problem. Hydrox didn't cry out yummy goodness, and it had become a generic name, and over time one claimed increasingly by chemical companies for whom the name actually fits a lot better. If you need hydrogen peroxide today, go to hydroxlabs.com. They've been selling the stuff since 1913. The origins of the name Oreo aren't well known, even in the archives at Nabisco. Or is the French word for gold, the color that featured prominently in early packaging, and Oreo is the Greek word for mountain, which early hill-shaped test versions of the cookie apparently resembled. One theory says the name has been constructed by sandwiching the re from the word cream between two O's from the word chocolate. Well, regardless of the origins, the name is a winner, much better than Hydrox. Mr. Elephant, you can now leave, you're stinking up the place. Okay, this may have been the end of the story, but there is a curious afterlife to the Hydrox cookie. In what might have been, and might yet be, a heroic brand rescue, the rights to the Hydrox trademark were acquired by Leaf Brands in 2014, and they relaunched the cookie in 2015. For the last decade, they've been fighting vigorously online and off for grocery store shelf space and consumer eyeballs. It's been a tough fight. Nabisco is now owned by the global conglomerate Mondelez International, whose PR department can happily boast that Oreo is the most popular cookie in the US, and by some measures the best-selling cookie in the world, with over $2 billion in annual sales. There's a whole other story to be told there about the rebirth of Hydrox. Too much for this episode. Perhaps we'll do another one down the line. I hope we do. From a runners-up perspective, I can't say as the scales have tipped in any meaningful way, which I find regretful. As a champion of underdogs, I wish them the best. I'd love nothing more than to take that picture down from the portrait gallery of members, which sits just outside the Great Hall where we have our annual banquet, where theirs hangs in a position of prominence. But I can't do that. I'm duty-bound to keep that portrait up there until the script is flipped and Hydrox starts outselling Oreos. I can't just unilaterally kick Hydrox out of the club. But I can do my part. And I will. I'm only an occasional cookie eater, but I do vow now, publicly, as a matter of principle, never to buy Oreos again. Will you do the same? Come on, why not? Honestly, unless you're an Oreo freak, what's the skin off your back if you change it up a bit? Buy Hydrox. Online if you have to. It's very doable. Do it. Let's turn this thing around. That's all for this episode, folks. I'm Ray Gustinelli. This is the Runners Up Club podcast. Thanks for sticking around, and I will see you next time.
This podcast is created, written, and performed by Ray Gustinelli, and produced by, with original music by, Bad Hat Media. Find more at runnersupclub.com. Until next time, keep running.